Hello, and welcome to today's HealthITAnalytics.com webcast sponsored by Verato. How Intermountain used cloud APIs and big data to improve patient matching. I am Elizabeth Frost, Operations Manager at Xtelligent Media and moderator of today's webcast. We will begin with a presentation by our speakers and conclude with a question and answer segment. Audience members can submit questions at any time during the webcast using the question tool to the left of your screen. The presentation deck is available for download under the Resources tab on the left-hand side. For all technical matters or difficulties, click the Help icon at the top right-hand corner of your screen. A recording of the webcast will be made available following the presentation. First, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Verato. Verato improves your patient matching through two powerful cloud-based referential matching solutions. Plug Verato Auto Steward into your EHR, MPI, or MDM to automatically resolve its toughest matches and reduce its duplicates. Or rapidly deploy the Verato Universal MPI, a SaaS-based matching solution that is easier to implement and much more accurate than any other traditional MPI technology. Now onto today's speakers. Beginning as a medical record file clerk, Shannon Hood has built a 37-year career in healthcare, working as an HIM department manager, a consolidation coordinator with the rollout of 24 hospitals and over 200 clinics into a centralized database, a solutions architect, and is now the EMPI Manager at Intermountain Healthcare. Shannon and her team work to uphold the motto, the right data for the right patient at the right time with the right caregiver. Due to a last-minute change, Joaquim will not be able to join us today. In his place, Nick Orser will be accompanying Shannon. Nick is the Senior Manager of Product Marketing at Verato, where he has worked since 2015. Prior to working at Verato, Nick worked at MicroStrategy, a business intelligence and data analytics vendor, where he held roles in product management, product marketing, and education services. With that, I'd like to hand things over to Nick to begin today's presentation.
Great. Thank you for those introductions, Elizabeth, and thank you for moderating today's webinar. And thank you to everyone who's on the line as well. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join our webinar, How Intermountain Used Cloud APIs and Big Data to Improve Patient Matching. And I want to send a thank you to Shannon as well for taking the time out of her day to share this story. I think it's a really compelling story, and I'm excited that you all get a chance to hear it. And with that, I'll jump into the agenda. We'll start today with the challenge that Intermountain was facing, which was data stewardship and a queue of potential duplicate medical records that were in its EMPI that needed to be manually reviewed and resolved. Then you'll hear from Shannon about Intermountain's story and how they are able to use a cloud-based referential matching service to automatically resolve these potential duplicates. Next, Shannon will go into a little bit of the results from using this referential matching service, including the improvements in productivity of the data stewards and some metrics around that. And I encourage you all to really pay attention in this section. In my opinion, it's one of the most interesting components of this webinar. And it's interesting because Shannon and her team were able to approach this in a very scientific and methodical and thoughtful way, how they were able to measure these improvements both before and after implementing the referential matching service. And after that, I'll jump back on the line and give everyone on the line a little bit of an overview of referential matching technology, what it is, how it can be used, and why it's better than conventional approaches. And then we'll end with a Q&A. So with that, I'd like to pass off to Shannon to get started on Intermountain's story. Shannon, take it away.
So it is such a pleasure to share my part of the MDM journey with you guys and to share our Intermountain story. So Intermountain Healthcare is a group of hospitals, clinics, doctors, and a health plan working together in the Intermountain West, serving patients and our members. We are headquartered in Salt Lake City, Utah. In 2014, we encountered a significant problem when we upgraded our MDM solution, and as a part of that process, unfortunately, over 220,000 tasks were generated. And yes, I did say 220,000 tasks were generated, which was quite overwhelming. Our business rules are predicated on two opposing concepts. Number one, that duplicates or fragmented data is bad. And number two, that overlays, or what we affectionately call as trumps, are also bad. And this necessitates intensive, time-consuming investigation. So first of all, the first question that the team has to ask is this task truly for the same person or not? In our business, we can seriously harm our patients if we combine them and they are different people. We can seriously harm them if we combine them and they're different people, not only physically, but things like credit scores could even be impacted because of breach of information and bills. And so that first question we have to ask is, are we preventing fragmentation? Are we merging the records that should be merged? And secondly, the second thing we have to check is, has this record always been for the same person? Are we preventing a bad combine? So given the intensity of the investigation process, with over 220,000 tasks, the whole process was just overwhelming. It was rather daunting, and so I did a quick calculation. If an investigation per task was 10 minutes, that would be over 36,000 man-hours, or 916 weeks, or 17.6 years. So we had two contractors, which would bring that down to 458 weeks, or a mere 8.8 years. Suddenly everything is manageable, right? And hopefully you are laughing, because I do try to be funny. I'm not always successful, but 8.8 man years is what we were still talking. So let's say my calculations were wrong, and say that it was 10 minutes and is way too long, and let's calculate it at 5 minutes for every investigation. That's still over 18,000 man-hours, which is 229 man-weeks, which now brought it down to 4.4 years. I don't know about you and your organization, but to take care of a problem that massive and to pay contractors for that long to solve that problem is not very tenable. Enter Verato and big data and referential matching. Verato already had a relationship with the Utah Health Information Network, and they began talking with me about referential matching. And I'm not the sharpest tool out there, but I quickly grasped that what I was being offered was a significant chunk of all the investigation that our team was doing. I have to say that one of the things that I most liked about Verato's approach and their offering was that it wasn't one size fits all. It wasn't, it must be done this way or that way. They were open to meeting my particular needs. They were willing to work with me to customize something that worked for me and within the business rules mandated by my business and organization. What we came up with as a first phase, and I want to emphasize it is a first phase, would be that I would SFTP a file or a group of tasks and send that data to Verato. They would use their reference data to determine the matching and non-matching of those tasks and return the file to me. So this is the Auto Steward Verato offering. And this would then be consumed by our contractors being a workflow process that our team was already using, which was a first in, first out, by priority workflow. So I'm quite sure that you're interested in knowing the results. So I will zip on to, sorry, I was supposed to have changed slides a few minutes ago. So this is the Verato Auto Steward process that we implemented. Their automated match determining whether or not the patients were really the same. They they came into 3 categories. Either, yes, this was a match based on referential matching. It was not a match based on the referential matching or the absence thereof, and that it is unable to be determined. So we had those 3 categories. So what we discovered was that prior to Verato, our 2 contractors were combining a little over 300 records per week between the 2 of them. That was actually 316 between the 2 of them before Verato. I did not calculate how long that would actually take, but just let us say that we all recognize it was going to take significantly longer than 4.4 years at that rate. So then, after Verato, by the end of the first couple of months, the two contractors were combining over double that amount, and a year into the process, in July, the 2 contractors were combining over 865 records per week, which is actually a 174% productivity gain from before our pre-Verato state. Due to some organizational changes and the impacts of those organizational changes, our numbers for September and the first half of October have been less, but we're still managing close to 800 per week range. Also of note was the fact at the end of our first year, we were down to 110,000 tasks that hadn't been processed by the auto steward process. And so for this particular year, for 2017 into July of 2018, we had a 58% resolution rate per file. So that means of all the tasks that I sent, 58% came back as, yes, these are the same person based on the referential matching. And if the team continued to do 865 per week times 52 weeks, we will at the end of this year into next year just be shy of having combined over 45,000 of those records. And I'm very happy to say that this has been a very successful collaboration with Verato, and I also want you to know that the relationship hopefully is going to continue and grow and change. Because one of the things that I first want to do, and we're talking right this very minute about a proof of concept, is instead of having us send this through the auto steward process file by file, that we would then call the universal MPI from Verato with a real-time API in our workflow process that we currently have, so that we would continue doing the file because of those particular tasks, but move Verato to actual records that are being uncovered the day before. So this wouldn't just be for our backlog, but for our regular routine duplicate investigation task as well. So that, again, the team can answer that very important question, is this really the same person or not? And so I'm very excited about that potential, and hopefully not only the success that we've had with our backlog, but with real-time duplicates as well. So that's our Intermountain story, our MDM story for Intermountain, and Nick's going to share with you the black magic that's behind referential matching.
Thank you, Shannon. Thanks for sharing that story, and we have great hope for our future relationship as well. So yeah, as Shannon said, I'm going to share a little bit more with you all about what referential matching technology is, how it works, and how you can use it. And as Shannon just said, they were able to see 174% improvement in their data steward productivity using this referential matching technology. And many of you on the phone today may have heard of referential matching before, but for those of you who haven't, I'll do a bit of a deep dive into what the technology is over these next few slides. And it helps to ground this conversation in what conventional patient matching technologies are and how they work. these technologies that we're all familiar with, the technologies that are in EHR systems and in enterprise master patient index systems. And they face fundamentally three challenges, these conventional patient matching technologies. The first is that they operate on bad data. It turns out, and we've seen this in studies with some of our own customers, some of our prospects, some other organizations we've worked with, and we've also seen this number repeated throughout the industry by other independent organizations. It turns out that 30% of patient demographic data stored in EHR systems and other health IT systems, 30% of patient demographic data is out of date, incorrect, or incomplete. I'm going to let that sink in for a minute. 30% of patient demographic data is out of date, incorrect, or incomplete in your health IT systems, including your EHR and EMPI. That can be things like, you've got a patient record with a maiden name and old address. It can be things like at registration, a social security number is mistyped or a phone number is mistyped. It can be common errors in names. It can be nicknames, using a middle name instead of your first name. 30% of patient demographic data is out of date, incorrect, or incomplete. And the second challenge that these conventional patient matching tools face sort of builds on that first one, and it's that their algorithms are only as good as the data that they're operating on, the data that they're matching. And because that data is 30% incorrect, incomplete, or out of date, conventional patient matching algorithms will typically miss between 20 and 30% of matches depending on how sophisticated they are. And it's really no fault of the algorithm, it's just that they've reached their mathematical limit in how accurate they can be in the face of bad data. They've reached a mathematical limit in how accurate they can be, and this makes intuitive sense. Consider two records, one with an out-of-date address, an old address, and a maiden name, and another with a married name and a patient's new address. No algorithm on the planet, no matter how sophisticated, will be able to match those two records together, especially if they're missing other key attributes like phone number or SSN. So that's the second challenge. Their algorithms are only as good as the data, and the data is fundamentally bad. And the third challenge is, of course, that they're difficult to deploy and maintain. And this is a frustration that we see with a lot of our customers. They're using conventional tools that even if the tool is the state-of-the-art technology from an EMPI vendor, a leading EMPI vendor, it will take months or years to deploy that technology. You'll be forced to undergo periodic upgrades in the software, and you'll have to constantly clean it to remove duplicates and tune its algorithms every time you ingest a new data source. So even if you've already invested months, years, and lots of money in an existing patient matching solution, you'll have to invest even more time, energy, and money to maintain its matching accuracy and keep it working the way that you want it to. So how does referential matching compare to that then? Well, it's a powerful new technology that combines three powerful approaches, technological approaches, in contrast with conventional patient matching tools. So the first is, as we just saw, conventional patient matching technologies contain demographic data that is 30% out of date, incorrect, or incomplete. The foundation of a referential matching approach, on the other hand, is a reference database of demographic data that contains demographic data for the entire U.S. population, and each identity in that reference database contains demographic data spanning a 30-year history and includes common data errors like nicknames and common misspellings of names and addresses. This reference database essentially acts as an answer key for patient demographic data spanning the entire U.S. And compared to the matching algorithms in conventional patient matching solutions, referential matching technology uses referential algorithms. They're a new breed of algorithm that leverage the reference database as an answer key during matching. They combine sophisticated probabilistic algorithm rules with big data and machine learning technologies, and they're a quantum leap more accurate than existing matching technologies. And that's something I really want to emphasize, is that referential matching is not simply an incrementally better approach. It's not just a new algorithm that's on the market. It is a fundamentally different approach to conventional patient matching technologies that is a quantum leap more accurate, not just incrementally more accurate. And then compared to the deployment models for conventional patient matching solutions, referential matching technology is fundamentally, it has to be deployed as a cloud service. It's SaaS-based technology, which means it's easy to implement and integrate, simple to maintain, cost-effective, highly scalable, and high-trust certified right off the bat. So let's dive into each one of those components in a little bit more detail. And I'll start with the reference database, which truly is the foundation of referential matching technology. It's sourced with commercially available demographic data from 3 different sources: credit reports, utilities records, and government and legal records. And importantly, none of the data that's in this reference database is the credit data, the utilities data, or the government or legal data. It's just that demographic data being taken from these different data sources, and it's put into this reference database and compiled into a complete profile of demographic data for each identity, and it spans over 300 million identities across the U.S. and contains over 30 years of history for that demographic data, and it receives over 6 million data updates per month. So it always has the most up-to-date addresses, most up-to-date names, phone numbers, email addresses, that sort of thing. And then on top of that, hundreds of thousands of hours of data science and engineering expertise go into assembling each identity, ensuring that the demographic data from each of these different data sources is compiled into the correct identity and is layered on top of itself and reinforces the other data that's already available to ensure that each identity in the reference database contains that complete profile of data, including that 30-year history and including common data errors like nicknames, common misspellings, common mistypings of birth dates, those sorts of things. So then what can you do with this database, and how does it help with the referential matching technology? Well, you build on top of that database these referential algorithms that leverage the database as an answer key during matching. And I'll show you a bit of an example of this on this slide. You'll see on the left a conventional patient matching technology that you would find in an EHR or Enterprise Master Patient Index will compare 2 records, the demographic data from 2 patient records, to see if they match. And you'll see each of these dots and lines in these diagrams in database A and database B represent those demographic data attributes like names and addresses. And the green dots represent data that's current, up-to-date, complete, like a married name, current address, correct SSN, that sort of thing. And database B contains a patient record with demographic data that's not quite as accurate. That's what the red dots represent. It's maybe out of date or incomplete, it's missing attributes, or there's slight typos in it. And if a conventional patient matching tool were to try to match these 2 records together, you'll see in this little animation, there's no way they match. They don't line up. But using the reference database as an answer key during matching, you take those same 2 patient records with those same demographic data attributes within them, and they both match to the same identity in the reference database, and therefore you can conclude that they match to each other. And that's what referential matching does. That's the power of referential matching, is using this reference database as an answer key during the matching process. So let's look at a little bit more of a concrete example of what that means in real life. So again, consider 2 patients. You've got the same patient, consider the same patient in 2 different records, record A and record B. It's Catherine Smith in record A, lives at 123 Main Street, and it has her birthday listed there. Record B has Kat Johnson, who lives at 456 Elm Road, and her phone number. Now, no EHR or EMPI matching engine on the planet, no matter how sophisticated or accurate, will be able to match these 2 records together. However, if you look at the same 2 records and you compare them to the reference database, the demographic data in both records will match the same identity in that reference database, and therefore they'll match each other using referential matching technology. That's truly the power of this technology. And referential matching technology, because of that, can make matches that conventional approaches could never make. And of course, as I mentioned before, referential matching solutions are always SaaS-based. They have to be, by definition, which means they're fast and easy to implement, simple to deploy using modern APIs, highly secure, including HIPAA compliance and high trust certifications, and scalable to hundreds of millions of identities in sub-second response times. So how can you actually use referential matching technology? Well, you can leverage it really in two fundamental ways. And the first is that you can use it to improve your existing EHR or EMPI using a simple plugin, simple but powerful plugin to improve your matching and reduce your duplicates that integrates with any EHR or EMPI without disrupting its functionality and without disrupting any of your existing processes. Now this option on the left, this improving your existing EHR or EMPI, as Shannon alluded to earlier, it depends on your own needs, and it can sort of run the gamut from anything as simple as a simple MPI cleanup, where you're just automatically finding and resolving duplicates within your MPI. It can be as sophisticated as continuously detecting any time that your EHR or EMPI has created a duplicate, and this is what some of you may know as active integration, where you're finding and preventing duplicates as they occur at registration. Or it can be something in between, like what Shannon was able to do at Intermountain, where you're simply using referential matching technology to improve your patient matching by automatically resolving the potential duplicate records that your EHR or EMPI has flagged for manual review by a data steward. You're improving the productivity of your data stewards. So that's the first option, is to improve your existing EHR or EMPI with referential matching technology. The second option is to deploy a referential matching enterprise master patient index. Now, because it uses referential matching technology that we saw is so much more accurate than existing approaches, and because it's SaaS software, it means it will be the most accurate, easiest to implement, most secure, and most cost-effective EMPI solution with no tuning, hardware maintenance, or upgrades, and with instant high-trust security. And of course, both of these options, you can go live in weeks and scale to any use case. So how can you put referential matching to the test at your organization? If you're curious about referential matching technology, how can you test it out? And as I'm sure you've guessed by now, we at Verato do offer referential matching services, and we find that customers and potential customers typically get started with us in one of two ways. The first is to do a simple diagnostic of your EHR or EMPI to determine how good it is at patient matching. And this involves essentially just asking simple questions like, how many duplicate records are in my EHR or EMPI? What demographic data issues are causing duplicate records to be created? And to what extent can referential matching technology help my EHR or EMPI match better? How many of those potential duplicate records can I automatically resolve using referential matching technology? How much more productive can my data stewards be by using a service like this? And because we're using this answer key in our matching, you really will see not just how many duplicate records do I think I have, but how many duplicate records do I actually have. You're matching against an answer key, so you can really find out for a fact and not just guess. So that's the first option, is a diagnostic of your EHR or EMPI's matching. And the second option is to do a pilot. Send a set of potential duplicate records to Verato. We'll use referential matching technology to resolve them. And then we'll give you substantiating data from that reference database to show you how and why we're making our matches, so that you can come to fully trust the technology and see how powerful it can be and why it's making matches that your existing technology isn't able to make. Now, if you're at all still on the fence about whether or not you should use referential matching technology, I urge you to go to our website, go to go.verato.com/Pew, and there you'll find a report from the Pew Charitable Trust, a patient matching report that they just issued earlier this month actually, called Enhanced Patient Matching is Critical to Achieving the Full Promise of Digital Health Records. Now, it's kind of a mouthful, but the report itself is very powerful and very well researched. It's the culmination of 2 years of research by Pew. And in the report, Pew highlights 4 cornerstone opportunities to improve patient matching and interoperability nationwide. And referential matching is one of those 4, alongside things like biometrics, patient-empowered solutions, and demographic data standardization. And the report itself recommended that healthcare organizations should consider incorporating referential matching technology into their processes. So again, this is 2 years of research by Pew, after numerous interviews with doctors and patients and other thought leaders in the field, to determine that referential matching, biometrics, patient-empowered solutions, and demographic data standardization are the 4 cornerstone ways that our nation can solve our patient matching challenges and improve interoperability nationwide. So you can find that report at go.verato.com/Pew. It was issued earlier this month, in earlier October. So with that, I'll open up the floor to questions.
Thanks, Nick. We'll now move on to the Q&A portion of the webcast. Audience members can submit questions using the question tool on the left of their screen. Our first question is for Verato. What EHR and EMPI products does Verato integrate with?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the short answer is we can integrate with any EHR or EMPI product, and the slightly longer question is that list includes technologies like Epic, Cerner, eClinicalWorks, IBM Initiate, NextGate, and Mirth, all of which we've already worked with in the past. So that's the short and slightly less short version of that answer.
Great. Our next question is, what is your take on how biometrics can help with patient matching?
That's a great question too. Yeah, so we're of the opinion that biometrics are, of course, a key piece of the puzzle, and they're a huge part of the future of patient identity nationwide. And the Pew report that I just mentioned agrees with that. But that being said, they are only a piece of the puzzle, just like everything is only a piece of the puzzle. And I'll give you a couple examples of why that is the case. Biometric solutions, as accurate as they are and as good as they will be for patient identification, they'll never help with the existing duplicate records that exist in health systems today. They'll never be able to find and resolve duplicate records that already exist in a health system. And patient matching that's done with demographic data is the only way to do that, because that's the data that exists on those records. That's the only way to match existing duplicate records. So we believe that referential matching is key to help resolve and can work in tandem with biometrics to help resolve patient identity challenges, including existing duplicate records. And the other challenge that biometrics will face is that if one facility in an organization deploys a fingerprint biometric, another one deploys a face scan, another one deploys an iris scan, there's no way that those solutions can interoperate with each other to identify a patient across those different facilities. And so the lowest common denominator on a patient record will always be demographic data. And so even if you're deploying biometric solutions at a facility-by-facility basis or a hospital-by-hospital or health system-by-health system basis, demographic data will always be the lowest common denominator between health records and will have to be used to match those records across different biometric modalities, whether those be, again, face scans, fingerprint scans, palm scans, iris scans, those sorts of things. And that the same goes for interorganizational exchange of data. Demographic data will be the lowest common denominator between organizations that are exchanging data, regardless of what those organizations are using as their biometric identifier. And so referential matching can and should be used in tandem with biometrics to help solve the patient identification challenges at an organization.
Great, thanks, Nick. We're going to wrap up today's webcast now. So I want to give a special thanks to our speakers, our audience, and of course our sponsor, Verato. Any additional questions that were not answered in the Q&A will be addressed by today's speaker after the presentation. Thank you very much, and have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.
Yes, thanks.